Hey everybody, today I have the legend, Jonny, by the way, Dinner Roll Moseley. We just gave him a call sign. He and I really get into it. We riff. This is something you're really going to enjoy. We really have unpacked and connected the mastery of whether it be an Olympic gold medalist in freestyle skiing in the moguls to really life. How do you transition out of being at that level of mastery? We get in this idea of being in the bubble. We talk about the mental aspect. We talk about the physical aspect. It's amazing. Know where your edge is, the edge of a ski versus the edge of flying on a jet. And I love that he says, don't be a meathead. Because it is easy to kill yourself. It's easy to blow up, whether you're doing a triple backflip or on the Blue Angels doing a loop. So dive into this one. This truly is one of the best that I've really enjoyed. Make sure you stick around to the end. There's some powerful stuff there. And if you like this, subscribe and give us a rating. It makes a big difference. Here we go. Jonny the Dinner Roll Moseley. Ready? Hit it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. I have the legend, Jonny Moseley, with us in the house right now. Jonny, we're going to be diving into your career, but also what you're doing now. First off, thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, glad to be here, as you would say. So, as well. Hey, guys.
Hey, Jonny, man, you were an icon of mine when I was in the skiing world, not professionally, just as a recreational person. You were epic out there. I remember you in the late 90s, early 2000s, just crushing it, right? And I thought maybe a way to maybe tap back into that was you've had so many epic experiences. Tell me, what's the one that really made you an icon? Because there's a lot of skiers out there. You just crushed the moguls, but what was it for you that set you apart?
Yeah, I think there's a couple points that did separate me. And I think what you bring up is an interesting first question, because in a judged sport like mogul skiing,
yep,
it does become a challenge to separate yourself. And, you get at a certain world-class level of any sport, of any activity, everyone is so good, right? There's so many good people at that level, and trying to give yourself a competitive advantage, gets more and more difficult the higher up you get.
Yeah.
And when I was going into the 1998 Olympics, I had some success on the World Cup. I had, won a bunch of World Cups. I led the World Cup tour going into the 96 season, then lost it right at the last minute. And so, kind of leading up to the 98 Olympics, I started to look at what would get, like, what makes it so, like, why are those certain guys on the World Cup tour that I've been around and that I've watched my whole life? How come they can go up and kind of win on command? Like, why, what makes them,
nice?
How do they have that ability to sort of, like, week after week, people are like, oh my God, they're the one to beat. Like, they step out of the gate, where I'm like winning and then getting fourth. And then, maybe a couple of weeks later, I might get a win, or, I just didn't have that sort of ability to really be dominant, I guess. And so I started thinking about that a little bit. Obviously, I looked a lot at my training, at coaches, and sort of reconfigured everything about my life to try to, crack that code. And I think, I always approached it the way my brother coached me, which was like, it's all solvable. There's something physical there you can do. There's something training you can do there. But I was able to, make those things happen before the 98 Olympics. But what separated me in those Olympics was this trick called the 360 mute grab. And and it was,
explain that one again. I get the 360, but did you reach down like a snowboarder and grab the skis?
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
So I did a 360, and halfway through the trick, I reached down with my right hand and grabbed my left ski and pulled it out underneath me and made this kind of cross thing.
Hey, I got goosebumps thinking of you doing that in the 98 Olympics, because that was cutting edge, man, right? That was different.
It was, people had done 360s. People had done 360s with iron crosses.
Yeah.
And
Explain the iron cross with skis. What is that?
That's like when you basically in the middle of the 360, you drop your tips down and you cross them like this, and it makes an iron cross image, right? And so that's where it got the term. And I wasn't the first one to do that, and I wasn't even the first one to do the 360 mute grab. But what I was good at, and I think what did separate me, is I was totally always paying attention to what was happening around me. And, I got into freestyle skiing because my brothers were big, into skateboarding. And it was always about freestyle skiing was always about innovation and progress and like trying to iterate on what the person before you did. And it wasn't about just who's faster. Right.
Right. It wasn't just about a clock. It wasn't,
right.
The judges are in there too. And by the way, that's called situational awareness. In the Navy,
Sure.
Being able to, like this, my background, being able to be in a jet, and yes, you're focused, but you also are situationally aware of what's going on around me. So keep going. That's cool.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a long answer to it's a long answer, good. But yeah, no, and I used to do a lot of observation, like watching people run and standing on the side of the course, seeing what they were doing. But the one thing that was starting to happen in skiing around, the mid 90s was snowboarding had taken over, right? Like when I was even before the 94 Olympics, which I missed out on, snowboarding was starting to grow, especially amongst my peers. And I loved snowboarding. I was like, wow, that's really cool, but I'm a skier. And,
right.
And so there was a handful of kids out of, Quebec, these Canadian kids that started doing snowboard style tricks on skis, and they were younger than me. They were a few years younger.
And what age are you at this time?
At that time, when I started hanging out with those guys, I was 20, I think, and they were, 18, 17. So they were just coming on the World Cup tour just before it, and I was kind of, had been a couple of years deep.
It's funny when you're 20 years old and you're like old for the World Cup,
That's right. Yeah.
Especially, that age, you're so bulletproof, you're fearless. We'll talk more about that. But so you're at 20, right? And keep going.
Especially in that sport, I've looked back, almost every Olympic champion in moguls has been around 22 years old. There's like one outlier. There's a kid who won when he was 26, but so you're getting towards the end. It's like gymnastics, and it's got more gymnastic because, 50% of the run, now it's 60, but back then 50% of the run is your turns. And then 25% is speed. And then 25% is the two jumps you do a quarter of the way and 3/4 of the way down. Anyway, so I observed these guys and I started hanging out with them, and I had a deep aerial background. So I had done triple twisting, triple backflips on snow. I loved I was an original freestyle skier. Like I did all three events. I did ballet skiing.
Yeah.
And so I had a broad range of skills, and I could really, almost like a guitarist, I could riff. If I saw something, I could learn it like that. And so, because
did you wear those pastel colored clothes? Remember the dude, freestyle skiing in the 90s?
Yeah.
That was it.
I loved ballet. Was like my favorite event. I wore one piece, fart bags and day glow. And I did routines to music and pole flips, axles. I loved ballet. Part of the thing with ballet is like the hardest damn event, because you had to be able to ski and spin backwards on one foot. You had to be able to flip over your poles. And then you had to choreograph that whole thing to music.
Right.
I mean, it soaked up like all of my time versus mogul skiing and aerials, because you're practicing routines to music. It was crazy, but it really did help my skill level. So when these guys started,
who was the girl? Susie
Chaffee,
Chaffee, yeah, I still remember her, man.
You really know your skiing. When did you get into skiing?
I wasn't a big skier. I wish I was. I was living in California. So I know you do a lot of work in California, bringing skiing to California. In high school, nobody in my family ever skied. And I joined the ski club in high school, and I just loved it. It's unfortunate that I never got in it competitive wise. I think I would have been a better slalom skier. I got like fast twitch muscles, and, I played football. And so I was more about football and went to Colorado. I went to CU. And,
oh, really?
I went to CU, played football 1 year there, and skied, and then went into the Naval Academy.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, it's a lifestyle choice, right, Johnny? I mean, you've made some cool lifestyle choices, and anyhow, so that's my background. But when you think about moguls and what you accomplished, those knees of yours, man, tell me, how are those knees right now? Did you survive?
Yeah, I was lucky. Sorry, I was apologizing for I have one home line here.
You got the old
and
phone.
I keep it just for emergencies, but I don't know who the heck was just calling me on it, but I unplugged it. So
no, I love it, man. I love it. I haven't seen that old of a phone in 20 years. It's
not rotary, but it definitely goes. But it's kind of a funny prop.
That's cool.
I was super lucky. I think I was made to ski moguls. I never had any knee injuries. And honestly, that's like 99% of the reason I think I was able to get to where I did. I just didn't have to deal with that. I never missed a season. I hit my head plenty and got my back, but I was really lucky. Got my shoulder coming in, from an aerial, but my knees were just, I don't know. They were just, I think the way they were designed is good for bumps.
Yeah. Are you bow-legged or are you straight-kneed?
Oh, good question. Yeah. So I'm a little duck-footed.
Duck-foot?
Yeah, just slightly. So that when my feet are kind of out a little bit, my knees are straight.
Nice.
So if I bring my feet in straight, I have almost like my knees want to go in a little bit. So it's almost like a knock knee. So I think when you put them on skis straight, my knees want to turn, like they want to bend. They want to go into the turn, which
you're already engaging the turn, the edges.
Exactly. Wow. Which would not be good for I think if you're like a super G skier or a downhill, you gotta be able to get in that tuck and you gotta almost be bow-legged so you have a nice flat ski and glide. Yeah. But for slalom and for moguls, which obviously is like 3 turns a second, it's good to be you're on your inside edge all the time. You're just transferring from one to the other. So,
hey, how much distance? I love the idea. 3 turns a second. And I know when you were bombing those mogul courses, man, you're bombing it, right?
Yeah.
So what's the distance you think you're covering every second?
Oh my God. You're the engineer, dude. You do the math.
How'd you know I was an engineer? I actually was, but how'd you know that?
I don't know. I went back I looked at all your bona fides. Well, I was curious because I know, obviously Blue Angels, when you fly Blue Angels, you don't start there. So it's just looking how far back where you started and how you got into it and stuff. Cause it's really interesting.
Well, that's what I want to tie into, you're at the elite level, Blue Angels elite level. So I want to unpack, not only how do you get there, but that nuances, the differentiator. By the way, in the Blues, we are traveling a mile every 9 seconds. So if you think about, a mile every 9 seconds, and that's just your airplane, and you got an opposer different than skiing, right? The opposers come in the opposite direction. So now you're actually have a closure rate of a mile every 4.5 seconds. So stuff happens really fast, just like I'm sure in your mind, as you were going down those courses, right? Things happening fast.
Yeah, no, I think there's obviously you guys are, it's I'm not comparing it, but yeah, you're receiving information faster than you can, process it. And that's part of moguls is, you sort of have these basics that you're thinking at, but at some point you're reacting, your mind, your body is just doing what it needs to do at that point. And you never know if you have that until you train it and it becomes a thing. But yeah, I would say back to your original question, my gut is you're going, each mogul is probably, could be maybe 5-6 feet. So maybe you're going 18 feet, maybe not quite. It doesn't seem like you're going that far. I could do the math, 25 seconds, in the run. Divided by, I don't know. I have to figure
It's
that. I've never thought about that, but I'd
no,
say
no,
I'd say 10 to 15 feet, something like that.
yeah, it's fast. And that's what I want to get back to what you just said. The idea that you're processing so much information. I mean, so much is coming at you, the snow, the bumps, what line you're going to take, all these things you have to process. I found that if I was consciously thinking, I'm too slow. If I'm in the conscious mode at that moment, that I'm off, right? Now there's the consciousness that comes before, the visualization. There's some thought, but when you're in that zone of you're just reacting, you're not even thinking about it, right? But you're reacting, at least in the jet. Now training for it, you have to think about it, right? And you go through this conscious, competence, but I guess I'm talking about this unconscious competence. How did you feel about that when you were skiing?
Well, yeah, no, I think you said it, and exactly how I think about it as well is I like to think, I'm not, they always would say, don't think once you're in competition, but, I am a thinker. Like I like to try to hack every part of everything that I'm doing and try to figure out a way to like make a formula that works for every part. And so, I mean, literally even before my Olympic run, I had like a little piece of paper. I took it out of my pocket. It had like a list of skills, like, cause you're thinking of like, I want to win, but winning is not like a tangible, skill. Right. So I was thinking like, outside ski, hands. So in my mind, I'm thinking I can control it by my actions. Right. Okay. But in reality, what you have to trust and what always happens is, 3-4 turns into your run, things start to, get out of control. Like I remember even my Olympic run in 98, like all of a sudden, you're going from controlling every move to reacting to what's happening underneath your feet. You're getting faster. Maybe you missed a little turn there and then you're off the jump. Yep. And so you go into, animal mode, or just, you go into that reactive mode. And, but like you said, I think reactive mode isn't just innate, it's trained, right? Like you have a certain baseline of it, and then you train it to be better. Yep. So that when you get in that situation, when you can't control things, you can't process it quickly enough, it's happening in the correct way. So I feel like at some point you guys are just reacting as well.
Oh, no, there's a plan. I'm so glad you mentioned that piece of paper because, we had a checklist, we had a sequence, and you had to have that memorized, but we know the checklist you didn't memorize. And every maneuver had, certain protocols to it. There were certain setups, certain communication. And then in the maneuver is when you actually got into this state of flow. But in between the maneuvers, you're consciously going, okay, what's my next setup? Where do I need to be? It just happens quickly. And I like what you said is that's a learned trait, right? And as you progress up the level of, let's say, just professionalism to where you're mastering something, you're able to do it at such a quicker pace, and I've learned that the human brain, every time I snap my finger, 65 frames hit our brain. We have the ability to process 65 frames a second, which is pretty cool because, the challenge there is, are you focused enough to know what frame to be focused on and knowing what to block out, right? So there's distractions and then there's the focus. How did you use your mental aspect to block out distractions when you're, performing, competing?
Yeah. I think there's different layers of it, because that is a huge factor. I mean, I think you start with the macro, obviously, the things that are pretty easy to control, which are, just pull some examples, but even going into the Olympics, and this was information I got and advice I got from a person in the Olympic Committee kind of had come talk to us, which was to send letters and whatever. I don't even think we had email or whatever to people that you thought might be wanting to get a hold of you in the Olympic window, like 6 months out, and say, hey, look, if you need anything from me, as far as like information, now's the time, because then I'm going offline. So,
Oh, nice.
I think there's the stuff you can control pretty easily, which is like creating a bubble around yourself.
Yep.
And then obviously if you have coaches and stuff, they can make that tighter. And as we got closer to the Olympics and I was winning and looked like the candidate to possibly go all the way, I had great people around me, like a head coach and then my, the technical coach. And he did a nice job of creating that barrier around me, like as far as press stuff and stuff like, so that's kind of the easy stuff. Then you've got sort of the personal, stuff just even on the hill. Like if you just get down granularly to, being out on the hill and listening to the crowd.
Yep.
Right. Like I ran in my Olympic run in 98, I qualified first. So everyone goes and then they cut the field to 16 and then they reverse the order. So I won the first round, which means I went last. So I was the last guy to go. So all 15 competitors went before me. So I could hear them all laying down like the best runs of their life. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the Olympics, right. And the scores are just going up and up and up and up and up. And so I had a very sort of strict routine, that I kind of stuck to, as far as like, it's a combo of keeping your body loose. So I'd be hiking up and skiing down little sections, trying to not spend all my energy, but trying not to, get too cold. And I actually had done quite a bit of work in the season with a heart rate monitor.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, trying to see where my sort of like where I competed the best, because I had so many experiences in my life where you'd be too high or too low when you stepped into the gate. And it's a 30-second run, right? 25 seconds. So, you can't it's not like a running race where you can kick it into gear halfway. You screw up the top, you're done. So you got to be like just right when you're stepping out, not too high, not too low. So, I used a combo of music, stepping up. But like I said, the most important thing I did to keep me, and this was, I was coached to do this. This is something I worked on with a sports psychologist and helped me. I literally, learned the difference between sort of outcome goals and, like tangible goals. And I really did use it. I took notes that summer before, and that's where every time my mind started to drift to like the notion of being on the podium, I had a trigger word, like stop, basically. And then I would go to my little list of protocols of like things that I could control. And as soon as I looked at those, I'd be like, I can do that. Those are stuff I've practiced that. I can stand on my outside edge. I can reach with the tip of my pole. I look down the line, and then I'd be like, okay, that's manageable. And that would bring me back down into my zone. So those, stuff like that, when you're doing live performances, or when you have to perform in the moment, I think help a lot, not to let yourself get out into that ether space where you've lost what your actual job is,
Yeah. And, I think you can see it in other athletes when they do lose it, right? Mm-hmm. Especially in the Olympics, there's so much pressure to have that one run, that 25 seconds. I think back to, I love you use the word trigger. And you said you had a trigger word. That's cool. So that was a mental focus back. So we had triggers on the Blue Angels, and I like to teach triggers in people's minds. But we had a physical trigger. So our trigger, one of them was, well, here, I'll step back because everything you're saying is so similar. So we actually had a barrier or bubble around us when we got to the air show. We had a police escort. We had a special room that, no one could go in. It actually said Blue Angels only. And let me tell you, you don't open that door. I don't care if you're the commanding general, you don't open that door. Right. And then that's our bubble. So we could, relax, unbutton our flight suits. And that's where we're going to brief. And that's where we're going to get ourselves going through this visualization process that I want to talk to you about. But then, when we go out to the crowd, we're in like a bus that, you can see the crowd line, but you're not into the crowd, right? Because you're being secluded. And just like I'm sure you are as an athlete. And then you're in the arena, okay? You're in front of everybody. And I found that it was an interesting ability to compartmentalize your mind, right? Because you see the crowd, you might even wave now and then, especially if there's a little girl, little boy, someone you're trying to, just be a good ambassador to. But then we would march down to the jet. So it's kind of like you're in the starting gate. When you're marching down, it's about to start, right? And we would climb into the canopy, would have our crew chiefs there. But here's the trigger. The trigger that I had, and we all had, was we said when the canopy comes down, it was like a trigger in your mind. And it was really cool because, Jonny, when that canopy comes down, it's like a vacuum, gets sucked out of the air. And all of a sudden, you're in a different state, right? You're in, tucked in like this cockpit that I'm in. And I would just say, you know what, for the next 45 minutes, because my show is 45 minutes, not 25 seconds, right? For the next 45 minutes, if I have a problem, it could be a personal problem with, my wife or my girlfriend. It could be a work-related problem. It doesn't matter. I can't do crap about that. What I can do is focus on what I need to do. So those triggers are huge. So tell me more about how you use triggers besides just that one word. That was a long story, and I know you probably have all those same kind of reactions, right?
No, it was really interesting to hear all of the exact minute by minute detail of you guys getting in, and that, trust me, I know that I'm right there with you. I'm following. Yeah. You especially don't want to be thinking about your wife and your girlfriend at the same time. I'm kidding.
Good call. Good call.
Yeah. No, dude, I love hearing about this. And I don't know if you know, but, and I'll tell you, but I did get to go, and, I got a ride in the Blue Angels. Yeah. So I am right there with you.
Talk to me, man. I actually, in our research and Sugar and I, we do a lot of research. That didn't come up. Tell me about your ride, man. When was this?
That's a good question. I should have looked it up. It was in conjunction. It was a San Francisco show. It was right around 98. I think it might've been the Olympics, and, you guys take people up to promote the show and stuff. And his name was Scott. He was a skier.
Scott Ind, I-N-D, right?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Intake is his call sign. Intake.
Yeah. And
you flew with Intake. I was just on the phone with him about a week ago. What an experience!
It was incredible, dude. Yeah, but I was with you because he came out. We were at Oakland Airport, took off, and I don't know where I came from, but we got in the canopy, and then you're in there, and it's a thing. But yeah, since we're on it, I might as well. So we popped up out of the bay, and then he immediately flipped it over to the city, and we're just chilling because he can't go fast there. But he didn't tell me, so of course, like, my head hits the other side of the canopy. hazing me.
He was.
And then we go out to we're trying to get offshore like 20 miles or whatever. So basically we're out over the Farallones, and then he runs me through the paces. We do the first, actually he called down. I think there was like a ship down there, maybe an aircraft carrier or something. And he performed something like a pop 2020 or something like that. Some kind of like like if you were to bomb a ship.
It's basically called close air support. So it's a pop-up. So you came in low, popped up, roll inverted, fire the target, roll off, drop your bombs, hard G, pull out.
Oh yeah, that was it. It was freaking amazing. So that was cool. And then he tried to see, tested my ability to, when I was going to pass out. So he dropped into like a bottom turn. And I think I got to like 7.5, and I was grayed out, and I'm like, I'm here, but I can't see anything. And so I've been knocked out before, so I kind of knew. But the grayed out was interesting because you literally can't see.
Isn't that unique? By the way, 7.5 G's is a lot for you to be able to take 7.5 G's, but you were right on the edge because and describe that feeling. So you're pulling G forces. First thing that goes away is your peripheral feeling, right? You lose your peripheral. All of a sudden you're looking like through a straw, because what's happening is you're draining the blood from your eyes plus your brain, right?
Okay.
And then there's a very small window where you actually go, you can't see anymore, but you're conscious. And you were, and that's because there's no more blood in the eyes, right?
Yeah, that's where I was.
You were there. You were actually conscious, but you couldn't see.
That's correct. Yeah,
that's
definitely.
Cool. That's right on the edge, because if you just go a little bit further, bam, you're going to be out, right?
Yeah, I think he had he had like a rear view mirror. I think he could see me, or he could. I was telling him, I'm like, I can't see, but I'm here. I'm talking to you, but I'm totally like, I didn't know it was called grayed out, but I physically I couldn't. I was trying. I was like, why can't I see right now? But I couldn't see. So
that's cool. I was the number 7 pilot. He was the 7 pilot that year, and I was the number, because we do the media rides. I was the number 7 pilot. Cool. back in 1990. So 8 years
Okay.
prior. And I got to tell you, and then you become the, opposing and then lead solo pilot, which are really cool because they're the maximum performance demonstrators. It's kind of like being a mogul skier. I mean, you're all out, right? But the cool part about giving a ride, I used to love, rare privilege to fly people like yourself. Like, I flew John Elway and I flew, by the way, Ronnie Lott there from San Francisco. Ronnie, we're still friends. By the way, who do you think was tougher? Because you were in the jet. So Merlin Olsen, all right, or Ronnie Lott, because I flew them on the same day for NFL Today. Who would you guess would be the tougher in the jet?
Well, I mean, I don't know much about Merlin Olsen. I mean, I know the name, but I mean, does it get any tougher than Ronnie Lott? I don't think so. But
exactly,
I don't know.
I mean, he had the reputation of the hardest hitter in the NFL.
Sure.
Right? I mean, Ronnie's the guy that cut off a piece of his finger so that he wouldn't miss the game in the playoffs, right?
Right.
Okay, well, let me tell you, we're going to go on a little tangent real quick. So I'm flying them both. It's for NFL Today, and we're flying out of El Centro, California. The first guy who goes flying is Merlin Olsen, right? So just like you're sitting in the jet, you've been briefed, like don't touch this handle, don't pull this, anything with red on it, and then your pilot comes up, right? So you were in the jet when intake came up, right? Or did you guys meet prior to that?
I feel like we met on the tarmac, but obviously I had to get the suit. I had to get my suit on and stuff.
The plane captain.
We must have met before. I'm just not recalling the exact.
You had a quick briefing by the plane captain about G-forces and ejection and stuff like that. But bottom line is, the first time you're meeting your pilot, you're in the airplane and shit's happening, right? It just feels uncomfortable, right? So Merlin Olsen in there, he's a big guy, bigger than us, right? And anyhow, we do the same thing, high performance climb, all that kind of stuff. And this is NFL Today, and you had that look back camera. Did you get the tape from your flight?
I think I have it somewhere. Yeah, I think I do.
It's pretty cool, right? There's a look back camera. We started putting those in 1990. So anyhow, I say, hey, Merlin is for NFL Today. I say, we're going to do vertical rolls. Did you guys do the vertical rolls where you pull the nose straight up and then you spiral up? Did you guys do that?
I think he did do that. I do remember something like that. Yeah.
That's a cool one because it takes 7.5 G's to get up to the vertical. So,
oh, really?
So, so that's why you were in that zone.
Yeah, maybe we didn't do that because I remember it just being like he just sat in that thing. Yeah. He might have been twirling, but I think he was just in that like,
exactly. Yeah, you feel the whole earth caving on you. Bottom line is Merlin took it. And so then I'm with Ronnie Lott and we're doing the same kind of stuff, working them up. And after about a loop, he goes, hey man, that's enough. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Cause I want this to be fun, right? I mean, the whole idea is have fun, but someone like you, I want to take you as far as you want to go. Right.
Yeah.
And so we're flying back into the field and Ronnie says to me over the intercom, he goes, hey, Gucci, he says, how many G's did Merlin Olsen pull? And I said, I said, hey, Ronnie, he pulled, 7.2. So for you to pull 7.5 is a lot, buddy. And he goes, okay. And he says, well, how many G's did I pull? And I said, Ronnie, what's that number in the upper left-hand display there? And it was like 3.8, right? And there's dead silence in the cockpit, right? Because I could hear him going, holy crap. Finally, he comes up on the radio. He goes, hey, Gucci, I got a problem. Because he was still playing ball back at the time. Merlin was an announcer, right? Yeah. And so he goes, I can see it at the next, Sunday night football game. Merlin Olsen is going to go, hey, you think Ronnie's tough? He's not tough. He only pulled 3.8 G's. I said, Ronnie, I can take care of that for you, right? He goes, no, it's okay, man. It's okay. And I said, no, here's what we're going to do. And I don't know if they taught you this. It's not how many G's you pull. It's how long you sustain them.
Right.
It's the issue, right? Because when you were pulling that, the longer it is, the harder it is to bear down, right? So anyhow, my point is I went into the break. I said, Ronnie, just hang with me for a second. Slapped on the airplane to 7.2 G's, got lucky, hit the exact same number. And when we get out of the airplane, the TV camera hits us and goes, first question was, who's tougher? And you know how when someone's looking at you, you can feel it. You don't even need to look over, right? And Ronnie's kind of staring at me going, I wonder what this guy's going to say. And I said, hey, they both pulled 7.2 Gs. He laughed. But now it's official. You know, Merlin Olsen was a lot tougher than Ronnie Lott.
That's funny. That's a great story. Well, yeah. And well, I know. And that's what's insane. And I've thought about it since, is that, so you guys, like, in order, I mean, you guys are actually flying while you're doing this, right? It's one thing to touch 7 Gs and then, you know, be let out. So, but you're like, so you train it by like flexing your taint or something like that, and your legs.
Yeah, it's a G-lock maneuver.
Yeah.
So we can
hold on real
practice
quick. I just happened to.
Oh, let's see.
I've got oh, dude, check it out. Oh my God, that's crazy. So I've got a pile of VHS tapes on my desk that I've been waiting to convert, and I was like, oh,
there it is.
I think I actually have it. There it is, October 5th, 1998.
Yeah, look at that old VHS tape.
I've been waiting to convert it to digital, so when I do it, I'll send it over.
Oh, you got to do that. I guarantee you there's moments that you've forgotten, and when you see that with the look back, that, by the way, that's pretty special, you know, to get a ride, once in a lifetime opportunity for most people. And of course, you know, what you've done is so special, and that's, you know, why the Blues wanted to fly with you, man.
Oh,
but that's cool. You had that tape. That's really cool. So back to real quick G-forces, and then I want to get back to your skiing. But you remember when you were in the jet, did they teach you to bear down, right? So when the pilot's going to say stand by, pull, meaning the G-force is coming on, what we were taught was you want to squeeze your legs, squeeze your gut mostly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And bear down, right? And almost, I don't know, did you do any yoga? Have you ever done any bandhas?
Yeah,
right.
I still do.
There you go. I'm big into yoga now too. And the bottom line is you're trying to keep your blood pressure up in their head. So you're bearing down and bringing that energy up, because that's the problem. The heart's here, the head's here, and you're draining the blood, right? And so you need high blood pressure, bottom line.
So, but when you got, but obviously you can, the more you, I guess, how do you guys build up to it? By just flying?
You know what? It's like anything. It's heavy weights and just reps, man.
Okay.
So we would work out on weights, because you want a heavy weights. You don't want to be too aerobic, because that's actually worse, right? So heavy weights, and then it's like training. You know, how many runs do you take, right? Reps, just bearing down, and working your way up to the point where you get to where you've mastered that G-force. You know, I never had an airplane knock me out. You know, it's like, no, man, I got this, right? But here's the key: 2 things, and I want to go back to your skiing, is you got to first be mentally prepared. It's not just physical. You have to have the physical strength, but you have to be mentally prepared, because what it really boils down to is how bad do you want it, right? To stay awake is going to be hard. And so how bad do you want something, and you're bearing down? Tell me that. How does that relate to your life?
No, I mean, that's like an interesting, comparison, but I can relate it in that I think I do find that now, being sort of, away from the sport for a while, and, having kids and coaching kids baseball and just being older, I do sometimes wonder, like, how the hell did I do that? Right. Like what separated me from, I don't know. Well, first of all, I mean, there's so many good guys at like the top level, right? That sometimes the Olympics is more just like, I can tell you exactly how I think I did it and was able to win, but at some point you're just happen to have a good run there and all that stuff. Yeah. But what separated us to even get to that point? And I do find that that I think what separates people at a certain age or at a certain level is like your ability to sort of like endure uncomfortable, call it pain, but to be uncomfortable and almost dig into it, like almost not to be cliche, but when I could actually be a little bit sort of like lazy, but if you put me up against something and it's nasty and uncomfortable, like the harder it gets, the more I dig into it deeper and deeper. I think I got to get to a certain level of adrenaline or endorphin for it, but then I just will drive into it. And that translates only in that every day of training, when you're training for an Olympics or a big event, every day is almost like that, right? You're sort of like, how far can you push each day of training? and then recover and do it again, because that's where you make the gains. And then at the same time, not be a meathead, and also be trying to include the gentler side, the thoughtful side, to how you can not just be, working harder for no reason, but where are you directing that ability, to give you an edge, and like, because you still have to create a trick or learn something that involves dexterity and not necessarily just being stronger. And what about which type of training are you doing? Like, we created this, my coach and I, we were training in Mount Hood, and
still one of the big training areas for the team, right? Yep.
Yeah, it was great. And one day we were working on a very specific skill, and we were like battling. Like, he was like, "You're not getting it," and I was like, "I am getting it," and he was like, "No." And so he was like, "We got to be able to work longer and harder on this." So he's like, "I think we can make this little machine that's going to allow us to train off the hill, because in skiing you only get, on a good day in the summer, you might get 10 runs, it's not a lot. You spend a lot of time sitting on a chair, a lot of time. And so the more reps, so we built this little lateral slide machine that I could get into.
Wow.
But it allowed us to really like work on very specific, isolate the skills, get rid of some variables. And it really did help us. I do feel like it changed my skiing. But my point is that, you got to kind of be like a brute, but you got to understand the engineering side of things too, to make it all come together.
A great analogy back to flying, because I always say it's easy to kill yourself. Like, I like you talked about meathead, right? It's easy to go out there and be a meathead and wipe out. I mean, that's not hard, right?
Right.
What's hard is to be on the edge and know where that edge is, right? I mean, so I found that whenever I was reaching the edge, and it varied on, where I was, what the conditions were, the edge always moves, right? You can kind of feel it, right? I call it nibbling the envelope. You kind of feel that I'm on the edge here. If I go a little bit further, something bad's going to happen, right? And I found that when I was flying, that I couldn't stay on that edge. So think about this in your run, or what I realized is, if I'm on the very, very edge, I actually have to back off just a little and then go back and hit it again. Back off, hit it again. Back off, hit it again. Now, when I say back off, I'm not talking about a lot. I'm talking minuscule amounts to keep pushing it. Tell me, how did you handle being on the edge?
Dude, I mean, that's like, that's like life, right? I mean, it's a really, interesting. I mean, you guys live it at a very, high consequence level, but yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think, I spent a lot of my youth being a little bit more that range was wider, right? Like I'd go for it. I'd lose. I'd win. I'd go for it. I'd blow up, right? Like, I can remember getting in, like the steeper runs were always higher consequence, right? Like, I was at a run in Whistler, and I remember you get off the top jump, and as soon as you land that top jump on a steep jump, you're all of a sudden going from, it's like dropping into all of a sudden you're going from X to exponential speed, and it's like, and you're like trying to hold on, and like a more mature me at that point, maybe 2 years later, this was in like 92, one of my first years on World, 93, my first years on World Cup, I would put the brakes on a little bit quicker and harder there, and to get to the bottom air. But this time I was like, oh, well, I'm almost to that bottom air, and I'm going to let it go, So, I send it in that thing and, elevate. And, I'm like, I mean, I don't even know how high in the air, way too high. And I do my trick, and it's awesome. And of course I land and explode.
Right.
And so, and I had done that enough that, you start to understand, like you said, like, okay, you got to be on the edge, but you gotta be loose, because you can't win if you're not loose, right? Like, I don't know.
I like that.
You gotta be loose and on the edge. I think I'm stealing it from Days of Thunder. I mean, I think pretty much like race car driving. You gotta be like, you gotta be loose, but you can't. You gotta know where that edge is, right? You just gotta like get it right to the edge, bring it back a little bit, and like you said, then you can touch it again. I think that's, like you said, it is totally the way I operated. And I think the trick is, can you do that consistently? Right. Can you train that, right? Can you train yourself to do that? Can you mimic that in training? And like, I can give you an example in '02. I went back to the Olympics and I created this other trick called the dinner roll. And,
Yes.
and it
By the
was like
way,
totally,
Sugar on my team has given you a new call sign. Your dinner roll.
oh my
Don
God.
Dinner Roll Moseley.
I like it. I like it. Oh yeah. I got a call. Of course. Yeah. Johnny, I need a call sign right in the middle here. Let me see if I can change it. On my thing. But that one, I was distracted by this trick I was learning, which was totally loose and on the edge out of control.
Yep.
But as a result, I ended up being a little tight in my skiing.
Okay.
And because I was thinking about some other stuff. And I ended up fourth. So it's like,
right.
You have to be, you got to know where the edge is, right? Like you got to be loose, it's, especially if you want to win, right? There's nobody that's winning consistently that is always conservative and never crashes, never blows up. So, but it's sort of finding that and understanding that, like you said, that's I think separates people.
Hey, how did it feel like to be number 4? I mean, you go to the Olympics, you fortunately had won a gold already, right? So but what's it feel like to end up number 4 when there's only 3 medals?
Oh, dude. I mean, not good.
No.
I mean, I struggled with it for years. Just, my poor wife's like my chief psychologist. I fully intended that I was trying to win that Olympics. And, it's kind of a long story. Like I could go on because after the 98 Olympics, when I went with the 360 mute grab, I realized that little signature move I did really separated me, and it made it easy for the judges to give me the win, right? Because everything else was good, but had I not done the 360 mute grab, it would have been, who knows, maybe there was maybe the judges just missed, it would have been too close. So, and I was also, so going into the '02 Olympics, I had gone off and done the X Games, and I was skiing was changing. So I was moving in the direction of free skiing, but I had learned this trick. I had created actually my own trick, the signature trick, this dinner roll out in, for the X Games. And I thought, wow, if I could put that in the moguls, that'd be really cool. So I went and got it qualified, and I had to get it, in the books. And when I started doing it, it took me a long time to make it work. Like I was knocking myself out. I couldn't really make it work in the moguls because the format was different, right? I was going from huge jumps in the X Games to a narrow margin of air. You have to land straight in the bumps, not as much air. And so I couldn't really do it. So by the time I figured it out, I was right up against the Olympics. I was maybe a month out, and not even. And so I didn't have, like, I guess I had mastery of it, but not to the point where I could go into automatic mode.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't quite ready. Maybe I ran out of runway, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was half baked. And so, but I did it, and I had high proficiency with it. And so I thought that they would understand how much harder what I was doing was than my competitors, because it was original. It was inverted, semi-inverted. No one was doing it, but I didn't get any extra points for that. And I was counting on getting a little extra love for that. And I could go back and we can discuss, it should have had a higher degree of difficulty. The following year, they made my base point value of that trick worth more. They opened up the whole sport to inverts and changed the whole sport. Yeah. But it doesn't take away the fact that I got fourth. And, you struggle with it, because I think if you're a person who, I put it on myself. Like I look back at all the different spots I could have done something differently, all the little points when maybe I got distracted and it could have been training. And, you start to beat yourself up over all these little moments that maybe you could have changed on the way in your lead up. And, over time that fades, and you can't beat yourself up over it too much, but it is something to think about when you're, like I tell, when you're going into an intense, competition or Olympics or something where it's like a one-time shot situation. You need to think about, how am I, you need to evaluate every single minute of your schedule and say, is that really, benefiting my goal? And it's a really hard thing to do. And it gets harder, the bigger you get, right? Like when you're going in with already, a gold medal and you've already got attention around you, it's really hard to say no to stuff. And it may not even be a factor, but when you look back, you'll certainly be like, damn it, I could have done that a little bit differently, a little bit that. But it's good. You know, you can apply that to everything in life over time. And it's a good lesson to learn. But yeah, no, getting fourth sucks, man.
Well, you know, I love the lesson you just learned about that. I was going to say, what's the lesson? And you just nailed it. And that is the ability to say no, right? Because that's really life now. You know, you're a dad, you're doing incredible stuff in the business world. You're out there marketing. I know same thing with me. The more successful I get with the number of speeches I give, the number of trainings we do, the number of podcasts we do, you know, at some point, you got to be able to say no. You know, and not just say no to say no, but say no so you can say yes to what's important, right? To that focus element. So great lesson there, man. Johnny, that's that. I mean, everybody that just listening to this can really grow from that, right? That's
yeah,
cool.
That one's a general one. You know, I think you can apply it, and it has become increasingly harder as you get, you know, more attention to say no to stuff. And then the other thing on that one was, you know, assumption, right? Like when I initially submitted the trick for approval, they gave it a degree of difficulty, and, you know, they were basically telling me it's worth the same as the other tricks. But in my mind, I was like, oh no, they know what they're looking at. The judges will give it the appropriate, you know, when the time comes. And you can't assume if you're doing something new and innovative that everyone understands what you're doing, and you kind of have to lay down. You know, I always point to this example of Shaun White, the snowboarder, when he did his double McTwist, I think in Vancouver, which was like the, you know, I think the following Olympics, maybe it was Torino, and he started doing this double McTwist, and he had gone out and built a private half pipe, and he learned this new trick, and he started doing it like in the beginning of the season and showing it to everybody. And the journalist was like, why'd you do it so early? And he said, well, I wanted to, you know, show it to the judges and make sure they understood what I was doing. Like, he invited the judges up in practice, like on the hill, to show it to him, because he said, I didn't want to suffer from the Jonny Moseley effect.
Oh, wow.
Which basically he was saying, like, you can't surprise somebody with something. Like, you need to, if you're the creator and you know it better than anyone else, it's unlikely that somebody else is going to understand what you're doing. Appreciate it. So you have to, part of it is you can't just think, well, I got it, so everyone should understand it. Like, you got to go out there and lay groundwork and show people what you're doing, and prepare the kind of, you know, the field for what you're about to do. That's another lesson I learned from.
It's great, you know, and that's a great lesson in business, right? A lot of times, if you're the first one, you know, you sometimes crash and burn because the market's not ready for it. You know, it's better to be the one riding the wave than creating the wave sometimes. On the other hand, speed to market matters. So it's art, not a business, right? I mean, not a science. And I love that Shaun White, you know, referenced you and learned from you, right? That's pretty cool. That's powerful. Hey, two things on that that stuck is, number one, the ability to be inverted. You know, you were pushing the envelope there. Tell our audience, because right now, you know, my picture, my background is being inverted, right? And that's uncomfortable for some people. In fact, for me too. First time you get inverted, it can be uncomfortable. And then you said earlier that, you know, being able to push through that uncomfortable, actually, I like to say, eventually you get comfortable being uncomfortable, becomes really a powerful asset, right? So tell me about pushing the envelope of being inverted on skis and getting that approved. Now everybody does it, right?
Well, Maverick, how'd you do it?
Right, exactly.
Well, we were inverted.
You're inverted. Good line. Hey, by the way, May 27th.
It's coming out.
Top Gun Maverick coming out, man.
I going upside down is a scary thing, you know, from the time you're a kid. And I always wanted to do it, and obviously went through the really proper channels, like progressions. And I've gone through, now my kids are, you know, my older kids doing flip on snow. And so I've gone through these, but
what age are they?
11 and 14.
Okay,
boys. So the 14-year-old is, but, you know, I think if you look at it at a macro level, because I ended up, when I was, you know, I think I did my first flips on a water ramp when I was like 9 or 10. And then, you know, you do 100, you're supposed to do you do 200 before you do it on snow. So you have to you log it in these books. And then, you know, and that's kind of the proper way they started doing it in my generation, because so many people in the previous generation got hurt. So I was fortunate to be in that spot. And I still preach that. People are kind of moving past a lot of that stuff now because there's so many facilities. But yeah, but it doesn't matter how much prep you do. That first one you do on snow, you know, you're really, really scared. And, you know, and it's a very early lesson in trusting the process, because if you think about like just flipping, you have to just be like, okay, if I'm going to go into the jump and I'm just going to do the motion that I've learned, it's going to work, and I got to trust that. And so, and you know, you start to learn to do that in everything you do. Like when you start doing, you know, I eventually worked up and did triple twisting, triple backflips, and they were scary at every level. Your first doubles, your first triples, twisting triples. And, you know, you get spanked. You know, I think in my first triple I did, you know, got around way too far, way too high, like pounded. And so, you know, you kind of push through these fears, and you have to trust that you do the training. But the most important thing, and this you can use if you're never planning on doing inverts, and but progression is like everything. And, you know, if you watch a video and you translate that to being like, now I think I can do it, you need to take a step back, and you have to just really break down elements into their very rudimentary, fundamental level, and just add a little, do it so many times that you're like, you know what? I already know I'm ready to go to the next level. Not, hey, am I ready to do the next one? Like, that's what happens to me. I'm out on the hill with kids all the time, and they're saying, hey, you know, can I do a backflip? And I'm like, you know, if I've worked with a kid for, you know, hours, and I've seen them in the, you know, like my son, like I've seen him in the gym and I've seen him in the water ramps, then it will be like, okay, this is the setup. Now it's time. But if you got to work through the progression to the point where you're so comfortable taking that incremental next step, and then it's just a small next step. And it's just a small next step after that. And I'm assuming that's how you guys work into your maneuvers as well, right?
100%. And like you said, it's not just at the world-class level. This is what's cool for other people, is it's in everything in life, right? It's learning how to ride a bike, learning how to drive a car. But at our levels, you're absolutely right. It's, you know, that's exactly it. We did 120 training flights before we ever flew one flight in front of the crowd. But in those 120 training flights, I would do like 10 roll-ins, inverted roll-ins every single day. 10 to where I could tell if I was 1 degree off. So I go, ready, hit it, boom. And initially when you're learning, someone has to teach you. So you're out front, the instructor's in the back watching, right? And he would say, okay, when you're ready, go, ready, hit it, boom. You'd roll in, and then, you know, sometimes your nose would be low, sometimes it'd be high, it'd be left, it'd be right. And you'd roll out and you'd debrief it right then and there. Okay, what'd you see? And this is what I learned, really critical. I asked, when I was an instructor, I would ask the student, what did you see? Instead of telling them what they did, I first needed to know, were they aware of it? And usually they're not, you know, they're aware of some stuff, but not the subtle stuff. And then you say, okay, well, actually you overbanked. And they're like, really? I didn't see that. Yeah, do it again. Boom, bam. And then you get to the point where the student really sees it, right? They feel it. I mean, I could tell 1 degree. I'm going, ready, hit it. And, you know, full stick deflection roll. How do you stop the jet at 180 versus 181 or 179? And you're not using instruments. This is all feel, right? And you'd have to do about 1,000 of them, honestly, Jonny, maybe 500 before you get that level of feel where you knew where you were at.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I mean, and you mentioned the debrief. I feel like it's like the painful process of editing a rough draft, right? Like,
exactly.
Nobody loves to do it, and I'm always amazed at some sports I help out with now, even baseball and stuff. Like, we used to watch every single second of every run we did over and over in slow-mo and like break it down. You know, it's like the debrief is the most important part of all that stuff, you know, and then you go back fix, go back, iterate. Yeah, that's really interesting. I was wondering how you guys get to those.
Well, let's
levels of
talk about how
precision.
you debrief, because I'm glad you got to it. That is actually the number one thing I teach. You know, I
Mm.
speak a lot to organizations about high performance, and
Yeah.
I focus at the end on the power of the debrief, because you're
Mhm.
exactly right. It is the absolute most important thing. We did it very much like you did. Right after the flight, we sign autographs for the crowd, and then bam, we're right into our debrief room.
Mm.
The time is sacred. It's a
Mhm.
sacred room, and
Mhm.
we have video. And just like you, we go over every single maneuver,
Mm.
stop it, go
Mm.
backwards, go forwards.
Mhm.
But how did you do it?
Yeah, no, I mean, we did the same thing. I mean, there wasn't towards the end there, and now they've gotten even better. Right now, they have, iPads, and as soon as
Right
you come
there.
down, you watch it right after your run. But
Oh, that's perfect.
when we were doing it, would be, you'd shoot the day, your day of training, and then you go home and work out, or and then you or go back to the room and work out, and then you'd have a session with everyone in it. um, and actually, I think that's lacking now a little bit. I think the power of the group debrief versus a one-on-one, where, now I think kids just watch their video with their coach right there, and then they move on and go do it again, which is valuable for sure. Feedback
Yeah.
after every run, but the value of sitting there with your peers,
Yes.
slash competitors, right?
Yeah.
In skiing, you're competing against these guys, but you travel together and share coaches, so it's a little bit of a weird thing.
Hey, speaking of that, Troy Benson, man, talk to
Oh,
me about
really?
Troy. Yeah,
Yeah, heck yeah.
I was actually water skiing with him a few months ago, Lake Powell, and he was
Oh,
teaching me
sick.
flips and stuff. But talk to me about Troy, man.
Oh my God, what a beautiful mogul skier. I mean, skier in general. Just I mean, he just had that touch on snow. Like he would get to his outside ski, and he had like that great sort of pronation. He could almost like lift his outside ski out a little bit just to tip it up on edge, and then
Yeah.
he just pull his front foot back a little bit, and it just allowed him to have such like great touch and flow through the moguls. Just a beautiful mogul skier, man. And that guy was just one of my favorites, and just an awesome guy too. So yeah, no, spent a number of years on the World Cup with Troy and NORAMs and all kinds of stuff. It's great to hear his name.
Man, well, Troy and I, like I said, we were actually water skiing, and you're talking about the nuances of the
Yeah.
ski, right? And you could still see he still
Mm.
has it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, whether it's on snow or water, and now we're doing those foils. Have you done the foil yet?
Yeah. We're all about it here. We do a lot of the wing
Okay.
foil with the
Yeah.
sail, but I've done it
The wing.
behind the boat too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nuanced,
It
like
is.
it took
Yeah.
me like 50 times of crashing before getting that weight correct. Right.
Mhm.
And working the foil in the wake and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. And Troy picked it up like that.
Yeah.
Man, you could tell,
Yeah.
he knew, he could feel it. Right. So,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Hey,
Yeah.
back to the debrief though, because we were on something really powerful. So you said something that really hit me, and that is the power of the group debrief, especially when it's your peers
Yeah.
and your competitors, right? And I see this in many different sports, but it was interesting. You talked about there's an advantage to having that iPad, fast, a fast debrief's a good debrief, but there's a disadvantage. And that is you're not getting the feeling of being vulnerable in front of your own peers. I mean, give me what made the debrief special for you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was an opportunity, if you did well that day, to sort of like have an audience to see what you did.
Okay.
Because always in training, there'd be you'd nail something, or in competition and stuff like that. But then there was that sort of moment of being able to take criticism from your coach, and be self-critical of yourself, right? Not to be able to analyze your video without someone telling you, and then to be able to watch the other guys as well and see what they were doing well, and listen to how they think about it as well, and listen to what the coach is telling them. So, and then just to be a little bit on notice, right? Like if you were skiing poorly, everyone's right there in the room watching, and there's some responsibility there that you No, that doesn't feel good, right? Like everyone's
Right.
seeing your faults and hearing you get broken down a little bit by a coach, or by yourself. So I think,
Yep.
and there's some support there too, right? Like then you can walk out of there
Yep.
and go to dinner or whatever and talk about it a little bit. And then, I think then ultimately it transitions into, you having, and this is something I would talk about with my kids a lot too, is that ability to not be totally always self-deprecating, like always taking yourself down, but to be, and not even self-critical, but to be very self-aware of where you are and
Nice.
what you're doing, and not have a false sense of your ability, and just always looking for tiny bits to improve on without hurting your own confidence or whatever, always thinking you suck, like that fine line, right?
Man, you nailed it. A couple points I want to just stamp, because I have what I call the 5 dynamics of a good debrief, and tell me if this resonates with you, and you can use it in your baseball and skiing and anything. The first is you need a safe environment, right? And I think that's respect, right? So everybody in that room, there's a respect for everybody there, coaches, players, the whole thing. Second, though, is I found you got to check your ego at the door, right? And this idea of humility, because of course everybody's good. You wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be on the U.S. ski team, right? Unless you're all good. But there's this humility aspect that also tees into what I call collaborative competition, right? When they first did the first Top Gun movie, they came out to us and they said, this place reeks of competition, but it's collaborative. See, that's the difference. I mean, and a little bit maybe different in sports. I don't know. You'll have to tell me. But on flying jets and stuff is, you're competing, but it's all about getting better as a team, not an I. It's about the we. Team sport versus you're talking an individual sport. So let's talk a little bit offline on that. But the third one was this ability to lay it on the table. This ability to be open and honest, right? And not hold back, right? And then your fourth point, which I think was super critical, is I call it the ability to point the finger at yourself first, right? So this accountability, but it's not just accountability, it's personal responsibility. And it's the own it and fix it mentality, meaning I'm going to own my own. And that's what I want to hear, and not all sports do this. I rather hear it from the player first, who can say, you know what, I knew I was off here, or I missed this. And then the coach can add to it. But that's critical. And then here's the last one. And we're going to wrap the podcast with this, is this glad to be here. You got to have appreciation and gratitude. Otherwise, it can be a downward spiral. You're not only learning, but you're beating each other up. So how did that resonate with you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was taking notes, man. Originally I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm looking to get out of this, but I love this. I'm getting the free Gucci speech. Collaborative competition. Yeah, I love that. And then own it and fix it. It's totally how I subscribe to it. And I agree. I know that glad to be here is an important message you send, and I had never thought of it in that way, as being like part of one of as a strategy, that as a thing that gets inserted with all like own it and fix it, what I would feel like are these more superior things. But I don't think that anymore. And if I look back at the times, I have times in my career where I'm not like super proud of what how I performed and how I related. And I think part of that was because I was a little bit ungrateful. Like I wasn't like just taking a look at the big picture and where I was at, and and just saying, hey, this is a pretty good, amazing spot to be here. And some of that I think can stem from I've found that when you're competing and you're training, you get nervous, right? And it's stressful, and there's a little bit of a feeling to flee, right? Like, and if you just, I tell people this all the time that are contemplating like quitting and going to different sports, or when they're moving on, is like, just take a deep breath, and you don't have to if you're always like, I got to win, it takes a big toll on you. And I'd suffered from that. I think if you just take a deep breath and like, hey, this is pretty cool. If I just exist in this, I can work hard, of course, and, I can go for it, but I don't need to put that type, like I always a little bit had like that, either win or go home, like don't be here. And I think that was a little bit, it hurt me in some ways. I feel like I could have, had some better experiences and maybe even perform better in certain moments in different times if I just said, hey, I'm glad to be here and doing the best I can and where I am at right now, and everything's cool. So I think that's a really important thing that I'm going to take away from this and use as a talking point for my kids and whoever else I can, help out.
That's awesome, Johnny. I can feel it in your bones too, where you get it at the highest level. And that is when it's not just soft stuff anymore. Glad to be here is not just being grateful. It actually increases your performance. And I like to think about it as two sides to the same coin, right? You've got the operational excellence. You've got all that you said, the harder skills of, check your ego at the door and own it and fix it and all that stuff you need. Okay. We all need that, right? And you got to start with fundamentals and work your way up, like we talked about on this podcast. But what most people don't realize is when you add in appreciation and gratitude, what you do is you change the biomarkers in our body. Inflammation goes down, serotonin goes up. You're actually increasing performance, but also appreciating. And here's the other key: your awareness goes up and your presence goes up. So the ability to meditate, to focus, to bring things in, to have situational awareness, it all gets impacted by the state of your mind. And that's what this stands for.
I like that.
We're going to get you a bunch of swag, man. We're going to get you a bunch of glad to be here swag. I got two questions. We could go forever, man. You are so much fun to talk to. But I think I got two questions that the audience really needs to hear. And one is that transition. You talked about, being an athlete and, trying to hang on. And, I look at your career. I mean, I've got it printed out here. You were amazing, right? How did you transition? And tell me what that was like and what you're actually doing now. Because, by the way, Warren Miller films, I love them. I see you in them all the time. There's so many things you're doing marketing wise, but talk to me about that transition in your life.
Yeah, the transition it's challenging. And, I had the good thing about freestyle skiing was you pretty much, to survive in the sport, even from age, 18 or 19 on, when you, at least financially, you have to hustle. You got to be a super hustler, because there's prize money just doesn't exist. The support, it's there, but the support from the ski team only happens, when you're winning. Then you start to get funded and all that stuff. And then you need, additionally, it's really about, well, I got to provide value to different sponsors. I got to go out and sell. I can't just, do my job and get paid. Like, I got to show them what I can do for them. So you do learn that relationship between, that marketing relationship and kind of how to do that stuff. And, it is a skill that I kind of had to acquire, which did help with the transition out. And I kind of knew, you could kind of feel it early on, that not early on, but as the end, I was like, okay, this has been very good to me. And then when I won the Olympics, it got even more, financially good for me. And that was great. But you're not going to take it like, you're not taking it out another 10, 15 years. And even if you do, are you set for life? Not, depends how you're living. So,
right.
You kind of have this impending end to it. And, I could see kind of right away that, at least for my business, like, exposure was important, TV was important. And so learning how to do stuff on camera. So, I started doing things like, pitching the local ski show, how to, could I send in a tape from the road? Cause we don't get this much exposure. And, so I started to get some on camera stuff. And so they gave me, when I won the Olympics, they gave me their show to host. So I started to learn to host stuff, and I got some lucky breaks. I hosted Saturday Night Live after the 2002 Olympics, which then I got hired by MTV from that. So that kind of launched me right into TV stuff. And I was like, okay, that's a good opportunity to transition. But even then I was still sort of like, okay, what do I, what I got to do here? And even within skiing, I was always looking at, okay, where's this skiing going? Like, that's one of the reasons I transitioned to free skiing, is because it was sort of growing, and freestyle moguls was not. So I think, I guess from a general sense, just having an eye out for like what's happening with what your skills are has helped me. And they've all been cumulative. Like what I learned from hustling down ski sponsors and corporate sponsors for freestyle, and then what I learned for creating, being a host for TV, has now benefited me in being able to do what I'm doing now, which is basically helping a lot of these companies I've either worked with for years or new companies that I'm working with help kind of market and sell their products the way, either with me or with other people, and advising them in those ways, either through, right now, obviously you've got like this convergence of all this media, right? So it's TV and social and, person to person marketing and, word of mouth, all that stuff. So I find myself a little bit in that same, in a position where I know a little bit about all these and I can perform in these different arenas. So that's how I'm able to even keep doing what I'm doing. But the transition from, I think personally, from having a regular singular focus where I know exactly what my goal is and I can train every day. That's been the hardest for me, just because, now I'm scattered, right? Like I've got 14 different types. I work with in 5 different industries, and then you've kids and I'm all over the place, and I can't really get a handle on one thing. And I'm trying to stay in shape too, because I still ski and still do the Warren Miller stuff. And so, it's like, it's hard to, as with anyone who's older, it's hard to let go of that, like that physical satisfaction you get from just working on one singular thing and having the gratification of getting a win-loss, right? Because that's just not what you get in real life. You have little wins here, but you don't have the ultimate, like, dude, you won the gold medal for that. You're the king. It's just not like, you're not getting kinged anymore. So it's like, you have to sort of adjust your expectations and be grateful for the little wins you get, or what feel like little wins anyway. And no, I'm much happier now than if you talk to me like 5 years out from the last Olympics I did. It was just great. I was lucky, but it's a tough transition. There's no doubt. Even and so just psychologically, for sure.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of world-class athletes. And by the way, we might have 2 call signs for you now, Jonny King Moseley. All right. But I love that you typed in dinner roll. That is so cool. We've got our call signs going.
Jealous. I want a call sign. Yeah.
I love it. But that's so challenging. When you're, you've got your day's programmed, right? You're getting up, you know when you're working out, when the team meeting is, when the bus has got to be on, you know your program, and all of a sudden it's gone. Right. You go from very structured to what am I going to do? And that's hard for a lot of people. It's, in fact, even for myself, I need deadlines. I need an event. Like if I got an event coming up, okay, good. I know how to prepare for it. Boom. But if I have too much time, I'm like, it's hard. Right. Yeah. And so what you've done is amazing, the ability to transition. By the way, we talked earlier, I live in Sun Valley. So I don't know where are you skiing mostly these days? I mean, you're all over the place.
Yeah. I ski out of Palisades, Tahoe, formerly Squaw Valley. And that's the mountain I grew up skiing at, where I learned all my skills, and then now I'm their chief mountain host. So I go and
Are you really? You're their chief mountain host at Squaw?
Yeah. We've built out an athlete team, but I kind of started that. So I do a lot of stuff. I do like kind of the Billy Kid thing over the holidays, ski with people. And then I help with all kinds of different projects there. Any kind of PR stuff we're doing, helping with passes, get the information out about stuff like that.
Oh, you're rocking it, man.
That's a great
Johnny,
thing.
I don't, you might not know this. Does the name Carol Reese mean anything to you? Carol Reese was my wife now. Okay.
Okay.
But she grew up in Squaw Valley. Her dad started the Squaw Valley Academy, as you drive in.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. That's Don Reese.
No way.
Yeah. Now they just sold it about 3 years ago. But she grew up there. She's on the race team. She knows of you, of course. In fact, I need to talk to her about.
Well, both my brothers went to school under Don Reese. So.
Oh, you're kidding? They went to the academy?
Yes. Yeah. So we know Don Reese well. I mean, I was a little guy, so I don't know him as well, but and I didn't end up going to high school there, but both my brothers went to high school there. So absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let her know. Yeah, so many people went through that academy and prepped them for college and other things, but your brothers went through.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And you're still up there now. You're the ambassador.
Yeah, so I'm there, and we are based out of Marin, but we go back and forth, and I spend a majority of the winter there, and then so I that's my home mountain, and then I travel around a bunch for different events.
Well, we'll exchange phone numbers. We gotta stay connected. I really enjoyed this time. This has been epic together, and I do want to ski with you. I know that's your profession. We'll figure that out, but it'd be fun as shit.
Let's do it.
Take some runs together.
Yeah, if you're out in Palisades, you definitely will. Hit me up, and I'll do the same if I'm in Sun Valley. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. Okay, let's wrap with the glad to be here, though. I watched your eyes really kind of light up. The aha came on about when we were talking about the 5 dynamics and how important glad to be here is, not just from a feel good, but a performance standpoint. So, what does glad to be here mean to you right now in your life? What does it mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple components of it. I feel lucky that physically I got through a lot of the stuff I did. I mean, some of it I look back at and I'm like, wow, it's really lucky. I had I think, I was very lucky, and I just am grateful that physically I'm good, and then I think the second part is, like we talked about before, that in general, psychologically it's pretty smooth, and that I have a lot to be thankful for. I have a great family, and life is good. Like it feels great. So and I think you're right. That does shape every day of my life. That when you're happy to be here and grateful. So I think it's probably jumps to the top of the list of your 5 dynamics for me.
Hey, there you go. That's a good thought. We maybe do that. Yeah, I want to say, what I'm grateful for right now is just this precious time with you. I knew this was going to be fun, but I actually had no idea the level of connectedness and not only fun, but deep, really understanding of high performance, deep understanding of mastery, a deep understanding of the mental side, not just the physical side. And my hope is that, everybody that was listening and will listen to this really gain something out of it, because, what you've been able to share with us today is priceless. It's a life skill. And I'm really proud of what you're doing now. I'm proud of, not everybody can say they've been at the top of the podium on the Olympics or anything else. And now also, being glad to be here in life, and that they're really appreciative of life. So that's a huge blessing, man. And I do want to ski with you. I mean, we're gonna have some fun together. Maybe you can teach me an inverted. I've never done an inverted flip on skis, and now I realize that I need the process. I don't want to start it today, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to just hang one out, right?
No. We'll just start with the trampoline. Do you have a backup on the trampoline? You can hang it out on the trampoline. Send me a video of your trampoline backflip, and we'll go from there. People love to do
All
that
right.
to me. They'll be on the hill. They'll be like, look, here's my video of me on the trampoline. So I should be able to do it on snow. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Hey, what's a good takeaway you could leave everybody in your life? You know, is there any lesson, any quote, any mantra that you live your life by now?
Well, you know, now I go by glad to be here, but
Nice.
in the past, that's a good question. I'm not sure I have a mantra that I say every day. But I probably should come up with that.
What you said is you just got one now. It's glad to be here.
I just go.
Yeah, and that's mine. And honestly,
I'll
you know,
take it.
keep it alive because we have so many people to help. All right, buddy, this has been awesome.
Yeah, likewise.
Really, really good to know you, Dinner Roll or
Okay.
King. Yeah.
All right, Gucci.
All right, brother. Glad to
care.
be here. Thanks for being here.